What's up, guys? Brian Grant here. Today I just want to talk about the Alliance War changes that will be going into effect starting with today's Alliance War. This is something that was posted by Kabam Mike over on the forums, and there are three main points of change that are being talked about here, along with the philosophy to kind of back up those changes as to why the developers feel like this is the best way to take Alliance War. And I always appreciate seeing something like this from developers. I love kind of getting in their mind of, what they feel like are the issues with Alliance War and how they're going about correcting those issues. Whether I agree with them or not, that's just part of the fun for me personally. But let's go back up to actually, what these changes are. So one of the three is something that we already knew about, which is Defender Diversity will continue to operate on a per battle group basis. So we can kind of skip past that one. That's how it's been playing out now for a little bit. One of the new changes is that they are revamping the nodes on Expert, Challenger, and Hard difficulty war maps. And they have a nice little nifty chart down here that shows exactly what the old nodes are and what they are going to be. So if you're on the Expert map, it's a nice little side-by-side comparison. And I can definitely tell that things will be a little bit more difficult. How much will this actually matter? Well, I'll get into that in just a little bit here. It doesn't look like every single node is going to be changing. I didn't actually count these, but it appears to be about 15 nodes or so that are actually going to be changing, and I think the rest of them it's kind of implied that they're going to stay the same. So yeah, that's one of the changes. The other change that's happening is the points awarded for Defender Diversity have been reduced from 125 per unique defender down to 50 points per unique defender. And this has to do with the philosophy of them saying that from the beginning, they wanted Defender Diversity to be more of a tie-breaking score. And this is where things get a little bit confusing as to why, I don't think that they're hitting their goals, because right above it, they clearly outline their goals as to making Alliance Wars more fun, engaging, and diverse. And again, I appreciate the efforts for them to do this, because I did feel that diversity was an issue with Alliance Wars, right? In the past, it's been Mystic Wars, right? So I'm happy to see them making some kind of efforts towards it, but I think they're missing the mark here. So if they want it to be a tie-breaking score, in my mind, the way I interpret that is, okay, both alliances, they explored the same amount. Maybe one alliance had one or two extra unique defenders. So let's give them the win. But it wasn't something that was like their main strategy going into the war. But if it's not their main strategy going into the war, then it's not going to promote this diversity that Kabam is trying to achieve. When they describe this as one of their main goals, to me that tells me it's something to think about before the war even starts. It's something that impacts your strategy. It's something that makes you want to have a spreadsheet for your entire alliance and figure out who has the highest ranked champions for each one of their champions, and then figure out the most unique roster that they can put on defense with the highest ratings and stuff like that, right? Which is not fun. And I feel like Kabam knows that's not fun because they're saying they just want it to be a tie-breaking score. But yeah, that's why these two things, it feels like a little bit contradictory here as to what their goals actually are. And I feel like the best way to create diversity is to just scrap diversity rating and just actually balance the champions a bit better. And I'm going to come back to the point of balance a little bit later, because a lot of people balance is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of players. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute here. I want to talk about another one of Kabam's philosophies where they say, additionally, both alliances 100% exploring the map should be a fairly rare occurrence. They said that it's not what they intended. They didn't intend for people to fully explore the maps. Right now I'm going to talk about like the top tiers of Alliance Wars. I'll come back to how this impacts people who are not quite there at the top tiers yet. But everybody in the top tiers are 100% exploring the map every single time. It's not a question, right? The only times that alliances don't is if they give up just because they know they lost due to diversity rating or champion rating or something like that. But every alliance is capable of 100% exploring, right? These nodes are not going to stop that. Not at all, in fact. It's still going to be easier than the previous edition of Alliance Wars. Because we're still, as far as I know, we're still going to see the class types and everything like that. So even though these are a little bit more difficult, they're not that difficult. And each person in your alliance might have to take on like one or two defenders that are just a little bit more difficult. And I imagine that a lot of players are still going to get through without even using any items. It's not like we're paying to get through the map 100%. It's just that it's something that we're capable of. What prevented it and what made it a rare occurrence in the past, the 100% exploration thing, is defender kills. And alliances, we have to make these very interesting judgment calls throughout the wars as to, all right, how many defender kills are we getting? Do we need to try to out-explore them, or are we crushing them so badly on defender kills that we don't have to take on the crazy nodes on the outside of the map? We can kind of streamline it to the boss, get the boss kill. We've got this war locked up, right? We don't need to invest the resources to get that additional exploration. Or there's other judgment calls in there as well. Maybe you realize, okay, you're getting your ass kicked, but the other alliance, they made the mistake of not going for full exploration, so let's go for full exploration and we can win, right? There's a lot of these little judgment calls that take place in wars, in the past at least. It was largely based off of defender kills. So without defender kills mattering for points, this is not going to be a rare occurrence. You cannot make nodes that are reasonable and expect alliances to not 100% clear. You'd have to make the nodes so stupidly, ridiculously hard that's the only way that would make it a rare occurrence. Or just bring back defender kills, and then it will be a rare occurrence because of alliances making these decisions. That's also kind of what promotes the fun and engaging aspect of Alliance Wars, which is also another one of Kabam's goals. Right now, Alliance Wars, it's a very, very mind-numbing experience to go through because it feels like your decisions, they don't matter as much. The way you place your defenders don't matter as much, right? It could still stop the opposing team and everything like that, but they can still get through, right? They can still get it's not going to stop them basically. So that's why it feels like it doesn't matter as much. Your individual playing doesn't matter as much because if you die, okay, whatever. I'll just keep going. I'll just move on. I didn't give up any points or anything like that. But in the past, if you died, you felt it, man. You're like, damn, I just gave up some points. Or if you did particularly well in that war, you're like, yes, I didn't give up any points. Or if you look at your own defenders, you're like, all right, well, I died a few times, but hey, I got some kills with my defenders, so it's all good. It balanced out. I still helped out my team, right? All of that feeling is gone, and it's just a very numb experience. That's the only way I can put it, and I think that's really dangerous for a game to have one of the top game modes be this kind of numbing experience without any feeling to it. 'Cause I feel like that kind of starts to spread towards other areas of the game. Suddenly, if this game mode doesn't matter, then it no longer matters what champions you're popping out of crystals, and it doesn't matter what you're doing to get those crystals in like the solo areas of the game. Because it doesn't matter who you pull, because it doesn't matter, in Alliance War, right? So all of these things, they kind of build on one another, and if this game mode doesn't get fixed, then it's that kind of mind-numbing experience is going to spread elsewhere, and I think that's eventually will start to thin out the player base. Now, I'm not saying I'm about to quit anytime soon, so yeah, don't get it twisted, guys. I see that in the forums all the time, people saying they're going to quit. I'm still having a blast in this game in other areas, right? For me, something like this is not going to change that, but I know some players, they play this game for Alliance Wars, so it is something that's very important for a lot of people. Now, I talked about 100% exploration if you're a top alliance, but what about alliances who are not at that top level? Well, with the Defenderversity being lowered in value, I think for a lot of players in those middle or lower tiers who are not quite there yet in the top levels, I think that is going to take them back to the old system of just using the best defenders, which is going to be Mystic champions with Mystic dispersion, right? Or just like a couple of the evading champions, because those are still pretty hard to kill, right? Nightcrawler and Spider-Man, stuff like that. Those can still be very challenging. But that also goes against their philosophy of wanting to create a more diverse experience. So, if you're a top alliance and you're 100% clearing, you have this force diversity, and the points that you're getting for that force diversity, it doesn't really matter. You have to do it either way. And then if you are not at that point, if you're not an alliance that's 100% exploring, you're just back to using the same old defenders, and diversity, again, is not going to be something that is achieved. So yeah, I think on both fronts, regardless of where you're at, it's just it's just not happening. I don't think they're going to hit the mark on what they're going for there. So yeah, I want to see some balance changes. I feel like that's the only way to truly create a diverse environment, is not to force it, but to balance the game better, to allow people to make the decisions on who to bring in, and that will create a natural diversity. And the only real balance change that I feel like needs to happen is just removing that buff that we get from the dexterity mastery. Mystic Dispersion will still be a very powerful tool. For example, I took into war my brand new rank 4 level 55 Hulk, my 5-star. I thought I was gonna crush some of these Mystic defenders, right? I go up against a Mordo mini boss, and I forgot that Hulk generates Fury. And of course, that feeds his Mystic Dispersion, right? And he gets his level 3, he crushes me. And I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing, right? I think it's cool that there's that interaction with Mystic Dispersion and buffs that champions naturally gain. So you kind of have to pick and choose which champions you're going to take in there for that reason. But I don't think it's fine when every single champion has dexterity. It's pretty much like it's almost a requirement to play this game. It basically is a requirement to play this game at the higher levels, right? Having dexterity and feeding every single one of the defenders Mystic Dispersion power just because you're evading attacks. Of course the game mode is not going to be diverse, right? Of course they're not going to hit their goals of having a diverse alliance war. So yeah, I think that's something that needs to change. And there are two arguments that normally get made when I bring up the change to dexterity. The first is that it's going to make things too easy, right? If Mystic Dispersion is not basically Mystic Dispersion is what makes the game difficult, right? Having to play around it. But I feel like Kabam is being limited in the nodes that they can bring in because of how strong Mystic Dispersion is, right? If things were toned down for those champions, then all of the nodes can be, slightly increased in power. We can see some of those crazier things like Bane being brought into Alliance War. Right now, if you've done Act 5.3.1, the Bane path, and you fought that Dormammu there, you'll know that that is a stupidly difficult fight to try to get through without dying, right? It's very difficult. It'd be way too challenging for Alliance Wars, in my opinion. It's possible to get through it, but most of the time you die to just degeneration damage, right? So if that was changed, then I feel like we can see some of those crazier nodes be brought into Alliance War. So the difficulty, it doesn't necessarily need to be, just taken down and then not replaced with anything more difficult. I just want it to be balanced out in a different way that it's still just as difficult, but, it also has more fun and interesting nodes. Also, if defender kills are brought back, then again, that creates a lot more of that difficult, a lot more of that fun and engaging aspect to it, where alliances will not be 100% exploring, even if the nodes are not as crazy. The second argument that I see is that, well, if Mystic Dispersion gets kind of an indirect nerf with the change to dexterity, then Mystic champions are no longer good, right? And those rank ups don't matter. But that's bull, man. That's absolutely not true. First off, let's talk about magic. I see people saying they ranked up their magic for no reason. Come on, are you serious? I'm still trying to pull Mystic Catalyst to this day to rank up my magic just to use her offensively. She's one of the best offensive champions in the entire game, but she would still be good on defense because of how crazy Limbo is. So yeah, she would absolutely still be powerful. Let's talk about Juggernaut. Juggernaut is a champion who's not good to use offensively. He is more of just a defensive beast. Well, put him on Kinetic Reactor and Limber, and even without Mystic Dispersion, that dude's going to be gaining power like crazy. You're still going to get backed into the corner if you're not playing it very carefully. He is still a very powerful defender, right? Dormammu, taking away the dexterity buff also limits his his ability to apply that ridiculous degen just from evading one of his attacks, right? But he's still going to be a very powerful defender too. Just the ground that he makes up on his attacks, right? He can push you against the wall very easily. Just think about Alliance Quest. Yeah, fighting him in Alliance Quest is a lot easier than fighting him in Alliance War. But you could still go down to that dude, right? And they could add some other nodes, or you can put him on a different node, Limber, with again Kinetic Reactor or something like that, to still make it a very, very challenging fight. So yeah, those champions, they could still be very powerful defenders as is, whether Mystic Dispersion gets changed through dexterity or not. So I don't think that we would need rank down tickets or anything like that. I think just make that change. It will open up the diversity a bit. Change up some of these nodes just a little bit more, make them a little bit more fun, bring in some of the nodes of Act 5, and then bring back diversity, or, I'm sorry, not bring back diversity, bring back defender kills so that 100% exploration actually is a rare occurrence, and it will make it more fun and engaging. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. There are, of course, other things that I have issues with Alliance Wars still. But I wanted to limit this just to what the actual changes are here and my thoughts on it. So yeah, if you want to see my other thoughts about Alliance Wars, you can go back and watch those other videos for the other complaints that I have. But for now, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.